Good morning, Mike. This is going to be video number 2. Now this is going to be a much more durable connection and actually a preferred method for connecting if you do not want to work on the component level. So if you're nervous about unsoldering from these points here, which actually on this unit we had a short right here. This is the original unit that had already been worked on. So what we need to do to correct this short would be to separate the wires that are shorted out together and bend this piece slightly so that it's not making contact between these 2 points, because these are both of your signal points, and if they make contact then you will get static and fuzz. Especially with audio devices, this is very important. With electrical devices, it's really important. So we are going to actually solder these connections. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a little bit of heat shrink tubing instead of electrical tape, because this is going to provide a much better barrier. We're going to slide this over the wires before we start working on them. And I've already applied a piece of heat shrink to the cable itself so that we can put this over the entire connection after the fact. So then we will match the wires up. Twist them together. I'm sorry, I'm hitting the camera mount. It's a little bit harder to do with a camera above it, but I think I can manage and get it done for you. Alright. I'm going to fold that over and make a good solid connection by twisting. I'm going to do the same for the white wire. And you want to make sure when you strip these wires that you don't damage the insulation further down on the wire. Otherwise that can create shorting conditions lower on the wire as well. And I've actually had to trim back the white wire a little bit because some of the insulation was damaged. So let's see if I can get this on camera, if it will cooperate with us. Now this is for just connecting, if you cut a wire and you want to connect them back together without losing any distance in the wire, this would be the way to go. And then obviously we're going to be using a soldering iron for this process. And it's very simple. You want to use, as little heat as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to heat the wire just slightly with the iron, get a little bit of solder on there. Then we're going to solder these wires together. And that's all we need. We're going to warm these up. We're going to apply the solder. Make sure it wets all the way into the wire. And that is a decently soldered wire connection. Probably use a little bit more. Make sure you're using a clean tip on your soldering iron all the time. Alright. So now we have these wires strongly bonded, soldered together. And we can slip our heat shrink over to cover the soldered area. And this is going to protect it from any form of shorting. And then I do not have my hot air gun set up, so I'm actually just going to use a regular lighter. You do not want to directly touch it with the flame. You can just get the flame close enough to heat it up, and that heat shrink will shrink right along those wires. And now you have a very secure connection there. We can take our grounding wires, tie them together as well. And in audio components, the grounding is an important aspect because it can lead to a lot of crackling and distortion in your music, which obviously you do not want. So we're going to tie that together. We're going to trim off the excess. And since this wire is a touch dirty, I'm going to use a flux pen to give it a little bit better adhesion with the solder to the wire. And this is just a cheap flux pen. You can find them on Amazon. Just water soluble flux. We're going to take and we're going to go ahead and tack this with some solder as well, in order to ensure that we have a good grounding situation. Alright, and now it's time to go ahead and close it all up so that it does not get damaged and it will not move around. I'm going to put our heat shrink over that section. Same as before, use a little lighter. Do not directly hit the plastic. Oh, I'm about to drop the camera. Shrink that on down. And you've got a much more professional repair job there. And that's going to work good for you. So in a pinch, this would be one of the more professional ways to go. And then stay tuned for video number 3, where I'll show you how I do it, where it's unrecognizable that it wasn't that way from the factory. Alright, thanks.